I'm Tim from Hamburg. I co-manage a company which invests in renewable energy, so try to save the climate and make some money of it. And I know Rob for quite a while now and follow his approach and admire him very much. And thank you very much for hosting this event today and tomorrow. I got two questions for you. One on innovation, the other one on Grenke. So you mentioned earlier that innovation is key to make it a really great business. So how do you make sure when you invest that the company really has the ingredients for innovation? How do you make sure this beforehand? I mean, if you look at Apple in the past, they have been very innovative. They've not been innovative anymore. They're innovative again now. Not so much innovation anymore. So how, for example, if you take Novo, what makes you feel secure that they're very innovative and not Sanofi is coming up with with a cure or something? So that was the first question. And the second is on Grenke. As you pointed out earlier, they're the ones which are growing pretty much 15% every year if they go into new markets each year. So how do you see this in the future? Coming back to innovation, as actually their real business has not been so much innovation. And secondly, how do you see the dependency on the founder of Wolfgang Grenke, as he's getting older and older, not getting younger, unfortunately. So how do you view this and see this as a risk for the company?
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for both questions. So I think identifying innovation is going to be very tough, and the biggest problem is, of course, there's going to be a lot of false positives. So if you look at any company that's successful, you tend to think, oh wow, what a great management it must have, and how innovative it must be, and all that kind of stuff. And that's just a mental bias that we have, that when someone's doing one thing well, you kind of assume they're doing everything else well as well, and that need not necessarily be the case. And you only kind of realize when a company isn't being innovating when it's sort of all of a sudden someone comes along and then it's kind of too late. So I think it is going to be super difficult, but that's good because we have competition from other thoughtful fund managers, and increasingly we're going to have competition from machines. So we need there to be difficult questions which can be solved through insight, and I think the way to approach it is first of all to be kind of conscious of how difficult it is, how rare it's going to be able to really identify the positive. So that's a kind of an important first step, and then I think the next step is really what is likely to be an innovative culture, and I think it's when the founder is the one who really sets the example by giving the freedom for people to innovate, permission to fail, because innovation is mainly about failure. So I think that's also really important, and I think you need to find sort of kind of, it's a bit like a treasure hunt where you need to kind of find clues where it's kind of being given away. So and I think I put a link on the talk that Astro Teller gave on innovation, and so you kind of ask a group of people, do you think innovation is important? Of course, everyone says yes. Of course, it's innovation, and so if you had an opportunity which had a high but uncertain payoff, would you do it? And it was, yes, of course we would do it. And then it's like, would your boss let you do it? I was like, and so you need to find places where the bosses are letting people do it, and I think we have some great examples in the portfolio where that's the case. Definitely Alphabet. And people often talk about the risk of overspend in the other bets, and that probably is the case. But the risk for a company which is that big and that dominant is kind of underspent. So you want to be kind of rather overshooting than undershooting. So then kind of Grenke, I guess, as well, there was the question, is it like concretely are they innovating, or how do we know if they're innovating? So was that the kind of the gist?
Founder.
And the founder leaving it. Okay. I think Grenke has done a great job on really sort of developing the business over the last 10 years. It's sort of entered into new product categories. into new markets. So it hasn't kind of just sat back on what it was doing. It's it's invested in factoring, and in the financial crisis, it bought a bank in order to get a banking license and be able to take deposits. And so I think it's done a lot in that respect. I think there is some change kind of coming along to the finance business in general, in that artificial intelligence is going to change the way loans are underwritten. There's going to be much more powerful tools to kind of figure out which are the bad loans and which are the good ones. And it's going to be super important that they make proper use of that. But I think they've got a great chance, because the AI tools per se are going to be readily available. So if you go to Google's cloud, kind of the various AI tools are going to be sort of already are part of the package. The real bottleneck is the data, because the AI needs to just crunch data in order to get results. And Grenke has the data. It's a very maths-based company. Mr. Grenke is a mathematician. He sponsors the chess world and lots of chess tournaments as a way to kind of find mathematicians, and so they kind of have the raw talent, they have the data. So I think I think it's all nicely set up for them, but they have to innovate, and they have to change probably the way they do things, and it will be important to follow how that works out, and to make sure they're doing it. And then in terms of Mr. Grenke, so he's probably going to retire in the next year or so, which I think is a real shame, as he's been a wonderful steward for the business. And but the good news is that he'll remain the largest shareholder of the company. He'll go onto the supervisory board as a kind of a very active board member. I think he plans to come into the company one day a week. So I think what you need from that type of figure is not kind of someone into the day-to-day business and making the operational decisions. You kind of need someone who kind of is a protector of the culture, and optimistic that will continue to be the case. But if it's not, we can change our minds. I always think it's important to point out that I'm going to change my mind, because one of the risks of sitting in a room like this and making statements and putting them into letters and writing it down is it can perhaps create a kind of commitment bias of, I said that, so I better stick to it even if I've changed my mind. And, I don't want that type of commitment bias. I like the commitment bias that comes from promising my investors to do things a certain way and then being compelled to do that. I think that's a great example of a positive commitment bias. But I don't want to feel wedded to something I've said in the past in terms of a company's moat or its the ability of its management. And if I find different data which disproves my thesis, I'll simply change my mind.